Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to go over my 5 Visual Studio Code tips and tricks that I've kind of picked up over the last couple of years since I started learning to code, just with HTML and CSS. And in this example, I'm using a React app, which I've been working on probably for like 2 years now, actually. It's just a number of components that I've either built sort of just to learn a bit more myself, or ones from my work as well, where sometimes on the weekend I'm sort of trying to sort of think of different solutions and come up with a few different ways sometimes and just figure out which one's best. But this particular app has styled components. As you can see here, we're using React Router, so just plain React, no meta framework like Next or anything. And yeah, styled components, and then, as I said, just React, so rendering some JSX here. So I guess the first tip, and actually one that I've probably had requested most often on the channel, is how to do the multi-cursor select. So for example, if I've got 2 properties or 2 values here and I want to change both of them at the same time, like how do I do that? For example, how do I have 2 cursors that I can then either add text to, or delete from, or do anything really? So the key there, and hopefully you can see my keystrokes sort of on the screen here, is to hold the Option or the Alt key, depending on if you're Mac or Windows, and then click an additional time you want each cursor to appear. So as you can see, I'm just getting a bunch of cursors here, and if I start typing, it starts typing everywhere where the flashing cursor is. So that's the first one, and it's very, very handy if, let's say, you've got maybe if here I want to create 2 new constant variables. I just double click, and I can do const, and then like variable 1 equals 1 equals, let's say, 0 to begin with. Then all I would do is just go to that second variable and just rename it like that. And obviously if I hit save, and actually I can see Prettier is not quite running, but let me just figure out some of these errors. It's because I've got the dual select. So there we go. Maybe that should start running, or should be okay. Use effect. But anyway, it doesn't quite matter. That is how I use the. It's because I added the 0 there. So there we go. That should be okay now. So that's the multi-cursor select. Really handy, really good to use. And again, it's not only for creating new things. It might be that we want to rename, let's say, this function and this one. We can do that at the same time. But yeah, so that's the Command or Control and click for that. The next one is, let's say if I'm in a particular deep file, it's got sort of a bunch of lines of code, and I'm at the very top, I'm looking at the import, then I want to quickly go down to the bottom rather than scrolling all the way down and doing that to sort of see what's been returned. If I just do Command and down arrow, like so, we jump to the bottom of the page. So we can kind of jump back up and down, just using that syntax of Command or Control and then up and down. And that also sort of works the same going left to right. So as you can imagine, if I'm on the left of this export statement at the bottom, if I do Command right, we go all the way to the end and then all the way back as well. So really handy traversing text. And if you're sort of here, you can go all the way back there to the start. So that's kind of traversing text a little bit. And the other one then is if I do the Option and Alt key, we then go across one at a time rather than the whole line, which again is quite handy. And if you pair that with the Shift key, we're then highlighting as we go. So yeah, it's really good because then you can either copy, you can remove that part. So yeah, I'm using that a lot, kind of going back and forth over lines, and yeah, kind of using it. My hands are staying on the keyboard at this point. I'm not reaching for the mouse, which obviously, all of these little sort of micro sort of time gains, I guess, it all helps, right? So yeah, that's kind of traversing text. If I'm then, let's say, in a particular tricky piece of code and I kind of want full sort of not Zen mode, because it's a bit too invasive, I think, or sort of too Zen almost if you use Zen mode on Visual Studio, what I like to do is do Command and the letter B, and that toggles the sidebar, as you can see here. So then I get the full screen, and let's say it's a really long function or some long piece of code I want to kind of see the whole lot, or it might be HTML. And if you've used Tailwind before and perhaps don't have the extension, that kind of sort of folds the Tailwind classes, as you know, or you might know, the lines can get rather long, but this just allows us to kind of open up the full real estate of the screen, whichever size you've got. For example, I'm often coding just on my sort of 13.3-inch laptop screen, if I don't have a second screen sort of powered up and paired on. So yeah, find that really handy there. So that's kind of the second tip, or third tip, sorry, now that we're on. So the next one would actually be some extensions. So as you might know, Visual Studio Code has a number of extensions that you can use. Auto rename tag is really handy. So for example, and where we go, if I just go to this link over here and just start backspacing, we can see that the closing link tag as well has changed. And if I want to just change that to an A, we can do that there very simply, like so. So yeah, it kind of auto renames both of the opening and the closing tag for us. Some others which I found really useful, and if you've ever kind of worked with React ES7 Plus, React Redux React Native Snippets is a fantastic library. And essentially what it allows you to do is just to type something like a simple command, and I think you can kind of create your own. But if I just show you here, if I just create a new file, I'll just call it test.js, and if I do RAFCE, what this is going to do is create a new React Arrow functional component with the ES7 module system. And then if I just hit tab, there you go, it's already created, and it's highlighting the 3 points where I've got the file name of test. Now I want to call this like my component or something like that. Actually, you can see here it's kind of missed off that div, so we need to put in the bracket there again. But yeah, that's just one of the extensions that I found really useful. And yeah, there's a bunch more. Some of the others would include, let's see, this Jest Runner. Those are really good. And some other ones include the VS Code styled components, like syntax highlighting. So if you ever worked with styled components, you'll know you lose some of the highlighting because this is effectively a string template, or template literal. But I find it's really nice to sort of, yeah, have a look, and you can kind of get the same syntax highlighting as you would if you're writing in a CSS or Sass file, for example. It's just kind of familiarity, and yeah, just reminds me of sort of using that. And actually, I don't write much styled components anymore, but I do find it's useful to have in my sort of older projects where I was using it. So anyway, these are kind of the ones that I've got installed, as you can see here. Some of them do require kind of more frequent reloads than others, as there's updates. It's very quick to do. And yeah, there's a bunch of them here, so I'll just kind of let you see all of these. Yeah, but that's kind of it, I guess, for those ones. And I guess really the last one is sort of having sort of file search. So for example, if I want to go to the settings, you normally have to go down here and then settings, and it's all a bit of a click. So what you can do is actually, if I just do Command Shift P, which would be Control Shift P, that will bring up the sort of the main menu. And for example, most often the times I'm going to settings is to restart either ESLint or the TypeScript server. There are instances where let's say you're writing a lot of TypeScript and sort of things get a bit out of whack, and it's maybe not recognizing a type, or something's changed. Often a restart of that server actually fixes things, and the error goes away. So that's just Command Shift P. The alternative is if I just do Command P, we then bring up File Explorer. So for example, if I want to go to the app.js, I can do that, hit enter, and we're here. And it's really quite simple to kind of bring up that file, particularly on big React apps or other big apps where you've got loads of files within the sidebar here. It's difficult to kind of scroll up and down, and you might have very deeply nested file structure, which obviously is not ideal. So yeah, I would go ahead and just implement that Command P, and you can quickly find your files there. Yeah, so that is kind of all I've got for today in terms of the tips. Let me know if there's any that you've come up with that you find useful day to day. I'd love to hear them. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.